Are you going to do an introduction or
Yeah,
am
yeah.
I just going to kick off?
Sorry, I was trying to find my record button. Uh,
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Acacia Barnett. I am the program manager for the Blackstone LaunchPad program, where we help students find internships and get career readiness. We're just waiting a little bit for some people to trickle in, but thank you for being here and being on time. We are doing this presentation in partnership with Career Services at ASU. So today we have Chris Watt, who is going to be helping us get all kinds of information and going over your resumes with you. So please feel free to hop in the chat and pop in any questions that you may have to ask Chris, and then also make sure that you have your resume with you right now. So that you can actively look at it and be taking notes in real time while Chris is talking. So, with further ado, I'll kind of share a little bit more about Blackstone at the very end, but I'll let Chris go ahead and take it away.
Cool. Thank you so much, Acacia. And hello, everyone. As Acacia noted, we're going to be chatting through the different elements of kind of crafting an application, making sure you're prepared and standing out through that process. The highlight of today really is going to be focused on that resume. So make sure, take just a moment if you have not already, and pull up a copy of your resume. Along the way, if you have questions or things you want to ask about, feel free to drop those in the chat. I will keep an eye on that and make sure we get to those as well. Um, and without further ado, let's dive right on in. We're going to talk through a couple of different elements, like we said, the elements of an application, how to prepare it. Resumes is going to be a big focus. Cover letters. I'm also going to touch very briefly on the idea of networking, because that is also, believe it or not, a very important part of this process. So we just want to make sure you have all the details and make sure you're prepared for those next steps. As noted, my name is Chris Watts. I am the Assistant Director for Creative Career Services here with the Career Services Office at ASU, and it's my pleasure to chat with you all today. Now, when we're talking about an application, it's important to make sure you start with and that you understand what the elements of an application are. When we're talking about elements of an application, there's a few to keep in mind. There is a resume or a CV. In the US in particular, the resume is going to be the most common document. A resume is a summary of your professional background, academic history, work history, certifications, things like that. However, you always want to keep in mind and keep an eye out to see if they're asking for a CV or a curriculum vitae instead. The difference being that a curriculum vitae tracks everything you've ever done and often includes things like publications, presentations, awards, grants, different things that don't always show up on a resume. So make sure you know whether you're looking for a resume or a CV. Cover letters. If there is a space to upload a cover letter, your application should include a cover letter. It shows that you have put some additional thought into information you want to share about yourself. It shows that you have put in the additional time to draft a unique cover letter to this position. And on that, I'm going to note, please do not use an AI system to write your cover letter. But focus on the details. This gives you a chance to elaborate beyond what's covered on your resume and to demonstrate some of your communication capabilities. You're also, on occasion, you might be asked for a transcript. This isn't super common, but if you are, just make sure you're aware on whether they need an official one. Typically, this is something you'll have to pay for. You can request it through my ASU, through the registrar's office, or an unofficial one. You can actually view that through my ASU here at ASU. And sometimes you may be asked for things like a personal statement or some additional application materials. Just make sure you're aware of what those are. Make sure that there is some consistency to your professional identity through these different items. So, how do you prepare your application? Well, it's relatively straightforward process. Always start with reviewing the position description. Uh, when you are when you are drafting or creating an application, You are going to focus your materials so that they are specific and unique to the position you are applying for. In order to understand what that means, you need to take the time to look at the position itself. Read the job description, read the minimum and desired qualifications to see where you line up. Look at what you're going to be doing in the role to see what things you already have experience with, and then tailor your materials. Your resume should address those items, demonstrate that you have the capabilities, demonstrate that you can do the things they're asking you to do. And then finally, follow the application instructions. This is crucial. Make sure you are submitting your documents in the correct file type. If they specifically ask for a PDF, you do not want to be uploading a document. If they are asking for the dates on your resume to be a numerical format, you shouldn't be saying January of 25. You want to make sure that you follow the application instructions. The other thing that you really want to do is highlight what you've done. So we like to throw these out there. These are career competencies. These are 8 key traits that employers tell us regardless of field, program, degree, major, anything like that. These are the 8 skill sets that they want their employees to have knowledge and experience with. These are the things that if, in addition to everything else you talk about, these are the 8 things that you want to make sure your resume and cover letter address. They want to demonstrate your leadership. They want to demonstrate your professionalism. And these are tricky things. These aren't where you have a skill list that say, I am a good critical thinker. This is where you put in a specific problem you have solved to demonstrate that critical thinking. So you want to make sure you are highlighting these elements. Now, the primary tools you're going to highlight these through in an application starts with your resume or CV. Now, why do you need a resume? Well, the truth is that a resume is that summary. Again, I highlighted this earlier, but a resume is going to be roughly about a page long for you. It's going to be a concise summary. It's going to focus on your skills and experience. You are going to tailor it to specific positions. And when we talk about tailoring, we're talking about as those bullet points that are under the job that you've done, you might actually change how you talk about something. Maybe in one area you have applied for a position where you talk about your ability to develop a communication plan, but they're specifically looking for someone who has experience with a digital communication plan. So maybe you go through and focus on how you've done that in the role instead. And often you keep these sections that are in the resume based on the position you're applying for. As noted earlier, that differs a little bit from a CV, a curriculum vitae, course of life. Those are very common in academia, scientific research, fellowships, grants, and sometimes in design-focused roles as well. So these are some things to keep in mind. And they really are that first introduction. This is how you're introducing your professional brand, who you are as a professional, to the people you're applying for these jobs with, these positions with, these internships with, whatever it might be. It is your first introduction. It is your first impression. It is how you are trying to get them to talk to you and connect with you. Because of that, you always want these documents in a simple and easy to read format. You want to make sure they are professional and error-free, and you generally are going to keep your sections in reverse chronological order. This means the thing that you have been involved with most recently will be at the top of your list. It's designed to represent your qualifications. It highlights why you are here, why you are applying for this position, and why you are a good fit for it. So, with that idea in mind, let's talk about the resume itself. First of all, formatting. This is Resume 101. You want to make sure you have a strong format for your document. Because of that, you do not want to use a template. The issue with templates is that they can look pretty, but as soon as you start changing things or moving things around, suddenly it doesn't line up. The bullet points are off by a couple of millimeters, which can catch the eye really quickly. Additionally, we're going to talk in a little bit later about applicant tracking systems, or ATS. Those systems struggle a lot with formatted documents that are based on templates. The other reason you don't want to use a template is because when you use a template, if you upload anything other than a PDF document, formatting and the way it looks and lays out can immediately change and not look good. So those are a couple of reasons you want to use that. You don't want to use a template. That's not saying you can't look at them to get some inspiration. How do they position their contact information? How are they, aligning and highlighting their education in a unique way? Another thing you want to keep in mind is making sure your document is handled in black and white. Resumes are an important piece, and a lot of folks will sometimes use them to demonstrate some of those creative elements. In most cases today, if you are highlighting or applying for positions that utilize creative elements, you're going to be submitting a portfolio separately. Your resume is really about highlighting your education, your work experience, and who you are. The other reason you don't want to that you want to focus on black and white is because that is typically what a resume is going to show up in. I've seen folks do like pretty watercolor patterns on their paper. The issue is, as soon as that got turned over and printed out in black and white, it looked like ink stains all over the paper. So those are some of the things you want to keep in mind. So a black and white resume, keep it simple. It's easy to focus on. Single space with those 1/2 inch to 1 inch margins and easy to read font. We're talking Times New Roman, Arial, Calibri, those sort of things. Your name should be the largest, 14 to 16 point font, no larger than that usually. And the rest of the resume should be 10 to 12 point font. Easy enough that you don't have to do a lot of squinting. But also, you don't want it to look like you're making it larger just to fill up the page. You really want it to look appropriate. So that 10 to 12 point font keeps it simple. The big reason you're doing these things, this what can be considered a basic format on your resume, is because A, it makes sure that your resume, from a formatting perspective, is along the lines of what a recruiter, what somebody reviewing your resume is going to expect. You don't want to stand out because you slow down that review process. If a recruiter is going through 100, 300, 1,000 of these resumes, if they have to take that extra 10 seconds for their brain to refocus on how you've laid things out versus how every other single person is laid out, that doesn't tend to lead to them viewing you in a positive light. So you want to make sure you stand out because of the content of your resume. What are your skills and abilities, not because you've formatted it in a way that the recruiter is not expecting, okay? So that's why we highlight formatting your resume like this. Now, there's 3 sections every single resume should always have, okay? Those sections, oh, great question. Are the templates that ASU provides appropriate? They are excellent for how you should lay out your resume. But again, you should start from scratch. Like use that as an example. Don't use it to just replace things and create your own resume. That would be my recommendation because it gives, if you are creating it, even if you're following how ASU has showed you to lay them out, it's going to allow you to make sure that, okay, I've moved these things, so you're familiar with how you've laid it out. You know how to change things, so your bullet points align. You know how to change things, so all of your indents align in the correct way. So that's why I recommend going that route. That said, the ones that ASU uses do follow the traditional format. They don't do any fancy columns or variant sections or anything like that in the formatting. So it should be relatively simple if you do want something to go in and replace and start typing out. But again, because of formatting sometimes going a little weird on folks, that's why I recommend using those as an example and building your own based on that. Back to the sections to include in a resume, you always want to make sure you have the contact information. Obviously, if you're going to be introducing yourself, you want to make sure folks know who you are. You're going to address your education, especially as you're applying for internships, those first couple of roles out of school or in any sort of position where they state that it's required to have a certain degree. Education is an important thing to include because you want to highlight that you've made the commitment and completed that educational element. And then the third section you always need is going to be your experience. This is typically, most folks associate this with things like work and internships and things like that. But we can also potentially incorporate volunteer experience if it's an ongoing, continuous experience that you've done. Things like that can be incorporated here as well. Now, contact information, again, your name is always going to be the largest font on the page. You generally don't want this to take up a lot of space. I've offered three different forms you can use here where you could lay out your contact information. You'll notice that each one uses the space in a different way. The eye is drawn to a different portion. This bottom one, for example, really does use a little bit more space. So if you're looking to fill that last little bit, you've got half an inch on your page you need to fill, that may be a good way to format your contact information. Um, the other things you really want to include, always include your phone number with the area code. And depending on the roles you're applying for, you may even want to include the country code on your phone number as well. Always include your email address. People always ask, can I use my ASU one or personal one? That I will say is a personal choice. If you're applying for an internship position, I would recommend the student email. Um, but anytime, if you choose to use a personal email address, make sure it looks professional. The example we use here is ima.student@asu.edu. We have some slides that use a less professional one. Um, but you want to make sure it looks professional, that it is still appropriate, even if it is a personal email address. The other things to note are that A, you are generally not going to include a physical address here. Physical addresses were typically required on these documents when there was paperwork that needed to be mailed around and signed and sent back, or details like that. What I recommend filling that space with instead is going to be your LinkedIn address, as you see here. If you are going to include your LinkedIn URL, make sure you have updated it. If you're like me, the first time I looked at my LinkedIn, my URL was Christopher-Watts-Q32AB298ZD. Adjust that so it's shorter, that it's professional, that it's easier if somebody actually has to type it in themselves for them to type in and utilize. Now, again, I talked about some of those less professional ones. Here's a couple of examples. You'll notice that we still have the physical address on here. I'm going to give you all about 30 seconds. Anybody see anything else on this one that we might want to change or that doesn't follow the template elements that I mentioned earlier? Feel free to drop it in the chat. Mail ID, lack of professionalism in font usage. That is a good one. You'll notice that the font, they change the font partway through. Like they're doing funny things with it. Absolutely. Area code missing from the phone number. Yep. There's just a couple more on here. A couple of the others that I'll note is one, again, we recommend, yep, the LinkedIn, absolutely. Leo-the-lion, and then a whole bunch of stuff. Phone number is incomplete because it's missing the area code. We recommend making sure the name is larger. You'll notice there's no last name whatsoever. And the name is in the same size, well, not quite the same size font. The E and the O are smaller. But making sure we recommend making the name larger than everything else. And then finally, this phone number or this email address, excuse me, is not one that would be considered professional. I'm the best at gmail.com. That's not necessarily considered a professional email address. So making sure you keep that professional. The second section that is required is going to be the education. Again, always make sure you list the degree first. I see a lot of folks who will put Arizona State University and then talk about their degree. You really want the degree to come first because a resume is highlighting your capabilities, highlighting your education, your knowledge, your skill set, what you bring. So making sure that your degree comes first, and it needs to be the full name of the degree. Don't just put BA of X, Y, or Z, or BS of X, Y, or Z, or BFA, or make sure you include the full name: Bachelor of the Arts, Bachelor of Science, Bachelor of Fine Arts. Bachelor's of Science in Engineering, whatever the degree is, list the full name of the degree. And then you can include the graduation date. Now, everybody asks, do I need to put anticipated or expected or things like that? You don't need to for a section like this. You can just put May of 2020, whatever, December, August, whatever it may be. You can put anticipated, but again, if it's in the future associated with education, the assumption made by a reviewer is that this is going to be an anticipated graduation date. What's more important is you want to make sure that it follows the same format as the rest of your dates. So if this one is May 2025, you want to make sure you use that Word version of your dates further down. January of 2025 to September of 2025, whatever it may be. So you want to make sure that's consistent. The other things you can include, or that you should include, are going to be that location, Arizona State University, Tempe, Arizona. Tempe is going to be appropriate no matter what campus you're studying on, although you can include the other campuses. But because the registrar's office, so if you send for a transcript or anything like that, will come from the Tempe location, that's why you're able to include the Tempe location. You can include the dean's list here or other academic honors that you want, magna cum laude, summa cum laude as you graduate, things like that. GPA is always one that comes up as well. Should I include my GPA? Again, my recommendation is if it's important to the role you're applying for, if they need it for some reason, sure. If you do include your GPA, absolutely make sure you include the scale. You'll see here GPA of 3.7 out of 4.0. There are locations and institutions that use a 5.0 or a 6.0 scale. 3.7 out of a 6.0 is not nearly as impressive as a 3.7 out of a 4.0. So make sure you include that scale to give people a reference of what your education is. The third required section is going to be that experience. And there's a couple of really key things to keep in mind with experience. The first is that, again, list the position title first, what you did first. Then you're going to list the organization name. Then you can go for the location and city. This last one, there's a little more flexibility on based on if the position title is really long, that might make that particular line really long, so it might not fit the page. The position, the organization are going to be the crucial ones you want to make sure you include. Next is going to be the dates. We recommend right aligning these. If you have it right next to your position title or right underneath your position title, sometimes that can make it difficult for the eye to draw out. If you put it on the right side, if you right align it, it's very easy for the eye to immediately pull out those dates to kind of follow a timeline of your journey professionally and how you have traversed things. So you want to make sure to include that. And then finally is going to be the accomplishment statements. This is one of the things that I would say is probably the most important. This is where you talk about, here is what I have done and how I have done it. So you want to make sure you include these. Typically for each item under your experience list, you're going to use 3 to 5 bullet points highlighting the skills and things you have done and performed as they connect to specific duties or specific items you're looking at in the job description as well. So what are some other things you could include? Well, you could include relevant coursework. If you have taken specific classes that tie into the job, maybe your degree does not appear to immediately tie into this role, but you've taken coursework that shows that you do have knowledge and experience. Community involvement is another huge thing you can include. Professional organizations, student organizations that you've been a part of or involved in, you can include those. Internships, most folks will tie internships in under their experience, so you can do that as well. Course projects, research, thesis, if you've done any of that sort of stuff. Technical skills, this is an important one. If you have a skills section, it should be related to technical skills, language skills, things like that. It should not be connected to what a lot of folks will refer to as soft skills. This shouldn't be where you say, I have good time management. I am a talented communicator. I am detail oriented. You should not include that in a skills list. Those things should be highlighted in the bullet points we talked about and the formatting of your resume. Technical skills are where you talk about, I have proficiency in Microsoft Office Suite. I am at an intermediate level in X, Y, or Z language. I am fluent in X, Y, or Z language, written, not verbal, or vice versa. Um, that's what should show up in a technical skills list. Certifications and licensure are exactly what they sound like. Some folks will include this more in their education section. Some folks will place this at the bottom, but these are certifications. These are licenses that are typically associated with the field and role you're applying to. Now, I've mentioned a few times accomplishment statements. What exactly is an accomplishment statement? Well, an accomplishment statement typically is laid out in the format of an action verb, then the project it's associated with, and what the result was. Now, I really like to highlight with this that action verb is important because this is about you taking action in the role. The project is important because you need to know what you were acting upon. And then the result is important because this is how you highlight the positive impact you have had in your past roles. So, for an example, here is a position. Barista at Starbucks, Phoenix, Arizona. You see the dates. Took coffee orders for customers. Okay, that's kind of an accomplishment statement. You took, what did you take? Coffee orders for customers. What was the result? We don't know. However, all of these statements can be changed to follow that accomplishment statement format that I've highlighted. Communicated, again, we start with that verb, communicated, resolved, problem solved, developed. And then we talk about the task. Up to 300 customers during a 4-hour period in a fast-paced environment. That was the task. 300 customers shows scalability. Also, including a number shows that attention to detail that we mentioned earlier, without you having to say, I'm detail-oriented. And then with successful delivery. You'll see further on the bottom one contributing to a 12% increase in sales. Again, don't lie, but if you know these things, feel free to include them. Numbers are important because, and I don't have the exact study in front of me, but including a number in one of these lines leads to it being 20% more likely to catch the eye of a reviewer. And that positive change shows that you have a positive impact on an organization. Now, the other thing to note is that you'll see that every single one of these lines starts with a different action verb. If you have one page to do this, you should never use the same verb twice for any of your action statements. I say this as someone who reviewed their own resume one time, and used the word coordinated like 3 times. There's no reason to do that. The Career Services website has a great little document that gives you like 200 different verbs you can use there, breaks them down. These are related to management. These are related to communication. These are related to programs. It'll walk you through all of that and give you different ones to use. It's also important to use those different ones because this is a good way to show that you are a talented communicator without you having to say you have good communication skills. The other thing you'll note here is the consistency. They all start with a capitalized letter. They all end with a period. We'll talk about grammar in a little bit, but what's important here is that they're all done the same way. If you do it differently, if you choose not to end all of your lines here with a period, make sure none of your accomplishment statements end with a period. Make sure there is some consistency there. So, here's an example. Cover the front desk. How might you convert that to an accomplishment statement? Does anybody have any thoughts or an example on how you might do that? Feel free to drop it in the chat. A couple more seconds. All right. So how might you convert this? Well, again, communicate, that strong opening verb. communicated verbally with up to 15 students per hour. That was the task. How many students per hour? What was the timeline like? And then resolve. What was the results? Resolve challenges, identify resources, and ensure a positive experience. This is a bit larger than cover the front desk. Well, cover the front desk just tells me you sat there. What did you do while sitting there? Well, I communicated verbally with up to 15 students per hour to resolve challenges, identify resources, and ensure a positive experience. If you ever see somebody talking about customer service on a resume, this is what we're talking about. Dive into the details. Customer service can mean a lot of things. Were you answering phones? Were you addressing issues at a desk? Were you interacting with customers on the floor? What does it mean in the specifics? And what was the results of what you did? Okay. Now, the next thing I really like to talk about with resumes is what we call the hot zone. This is that very top portion. Usually this is going to be your communication, your identity section, your education section, and the first item or two under your experience section, which is usually what most folks have at the top of their resume. This is where you want your most valuable information. If they say they need a specific degree, you want your education here to show I've got that degree. If they say they're looking for somebody with particular experience or knowledge, you want this section to highlight that. This is the section that every recruiter is going to look at on your resume. So you really want to highlight that you have that, whatever they are asking for, as their top priorities right here. Now, one topic that comes up a lot with resumes, especially as you start submitting them, if you've ever been to one of those pages where it says, hey, submit your resume here. A lot of those will go through what's called an ATS, or an applicant tracking system. These are closed AI systems that do an initial review looking for key terms, looking to see if you meet the minimum qualifications, to see if it's worth your resume going to a next level of review. You want to make sure that your resume can successfully get through these. And there's a couple of tricks to doing that. Again, talked about ATS. It's a system that employers use to find the most qualified candidates. It's designed to streamline the process, removes resumes that don't meet those minimum qualifications. And it really does focus on looking for keywords from the job description itself. It's focused on helping reviewers find those applicants. So if you really want to beat the system, there's a couple of practices that you're going to want to keep in mind. One, you're going to want to apply for jobs that meet your qualifications. People always ask, well, I don't meet 100%. Should I apply for it? My recommendation is if you meet at least 70 to 80% of the qualifications, and especially if you meet all of the required qualifications, absolutely go for it. Take the chance, but still make sure you're tailoring your materials. Use those relevant keywords from the job description. This is an area where you can use AI. A great thing to do is copy a job description and post it into AI and say, hey, what are the key skills? What are the top 10 key skills from this job description? Top 15, whatever it may be. And then you can look at your resume and say, okay, have I actually addressed these? Do I specifically talk about these? A skills section, if they're looking for somebody with experience in this program, or ability to speak in this language, or ability to code this. Highlighting those in the skills section are a great way to stand out. Again, keep the resume simple, formatted templates, things like that. And we're talking templates that have like that pretty little stretch of color on the left, or are columns of information. ATS systems struggle to navigate those appropriately. Additionally, ATS systems are set up to review a specific type of document. If they say .doc or PDF, go for either one. But if they ask for a specific document, use that. Use basic language. Don't create super complex sentences or use words that are not traditional for how you speak. Focus on speaking how you speak. Again, avoid color, graphics, and punctuation. There's no reason to have, like, a resume doesn't really need to include your picture, doesn't really need to include a lot of color and graphics. Punctuation, again, periods, commas, perfectly fine. Colons and semicolons and quotation marks and all this other stuff, ATS systems can struggle with those, and therefore it can lead to you struggling to move to those next steps. So focus on appropriate, but again, basic language, basic punctuation. The other important item is going to be making sure you have a cover letter. If there is a space and an option to upload a cover letter, you should absolutely be doing that. Now, this can get tricky. A cover letter and the QR code on the right here is going to take you to some great resources on our website. But a cover letter is generally going to be in a business letter format. Dear hiring committee, your letter. Sincerely, your name. Right above the dear, maybe you've got the address of the company or something like that. You want to use the same header and style of the resume. Personally, what I do is my contact information is the header on my resume. It's also the header on my cover letter. Visually, psychologically, it's a quick and easy way for somebody to tie those two documents together. And it saves me from having to create a whole new header on each one. On the document itself, you want those paragraphs to be at most 3 to 4 paragraphs that really do highlight the information. Again, no more than a page. And you may even want to look into it. Some positions you may apply for, and a cover letter really is half a page because it really is in that business writing style. Some others, they may want a little more. Tell us a bit more of your story, give us a whole page. So making sure you're writing what is appropriate for the position you're applying for. What do you want to include? Well, again, restate the job description or the program you're applying to. Pick specific details to mention. Highlight that you've actually read the job description. The strangest thing I've seen is I've read cover letters where they name the position, but it's not the position they've actually applied for. They've named like they're applying for a program coordinator role, and they talk about applying for a software engineer role. Make sure that you actually use the name of the position you're applying for. From there, highlight where you're a strong candidate. Why should you be the one they want to know more about? Why are you the one they want to talk to? Feel free to include some examples. This is where you can get a little more complex, a little more wordy than on your resume. Your resume, you've got that one accomplishment statement. That's a sentence at most. Here, you've got a paragraph to tell a little more of that story. What was the real impact? Why was this important to you? And how does it highlight you as a good candidate? What is your professional brand that you bring to the show here? And then wrap it up by asking for an interview and providing your contact information. If you got it at the top, contact information is provided. If not, sincerely, your name, email address, phone number. Thank you for meeting with me. Thank you for taking the time to review my cover letter, and I look forward to hearing further about. I look forward to the opportunity to interview with you. Now, the closing itself, what you do want to include, again, request an opportunity for an interview. I look forward to interviewing with your organization for this role, something like that. Your contact information can be included, and express your gratitude and include the closing remarks. Thank you for taking the time to review this. Sincerely, best, etc. Take your pick. What you do not want to do, don't end it abruptly. There needs to be a closing there. Thank you for your time. Avoid the casual goodbyes. Later, bye, sorry, so long, talk to you later. And you also want to avoid those attention-grabbing statements. Okay, let's cut to the chase. Now, the important thing to know is avoid those things that are designed to catch the attention immediately. This is still a conversational piece. This is still you focusing on talking to somebody through a letter. And you always want to do a final review on all of these documents. This is true of your cover letter. This is true of your resume. This is true of anything you're going to be submitting. Use a checklist. Again, our online website has a great checklist that'll walk you through both the resume and the cover letter. For the cover letter and the resume, focus on grammar and spelling. Get somebody else to take a look at it. Are you consistent in your grammar and in your spelling and how you've addressed things? Are you using those key phrases and words that the job description wants you to have? Having somebody else review it can be great because if you're anything like me, you'll type something out, and when you read it back in your head or even out loud, you know what you're trying to say, and your mind will automatically say you said it, but somebody else may look at it and say, you're missing a word here. You've got three ands in a row, and you've got the back to back because it went to a new line or something. The other thing they can help you do is understand the clarity. Maybe you think you very clearly stated, I say this right here, but they review it and say, you know what? They're asking for somebody who has this ability, and you don't talk about that at all in here. And you say, well, no, but I've actually mentioned it in this section right here. Well, if somebody else is reviewing it and can tell you, I'm not seeing that, that may be a good indicator to you that it's worth reviewing, perhaps even changing a little bit. Now, there are some great resources that can really help you with your resume. They can really help you um, get a quick review of it. One that I strongly recommend is the Career Services website has a tool called VMOC. VMOC is a similar to an ATS. It's going to give you that instantaneous feedback. It is great for reviewing your resume based on formatting. It is great for reviewing your resume based on word choice. I recommend that after you go through and use some of the tips and tricks we've talked about today, and you get a draft of your resume, go to VMOC and upload it. It's going to give you, fair warning, it is going to give you a score from 0 to 100. The higher the score, the better. But it's going to give you some very specific feedback, and it lets you even edit it in the program itself. You can make those adjustments, you can make those changes, and then review it again to see, have I improved my score? Am I getting closer? From there, you are then welcome to meet with our team to schedule an appointment with Career Services to talk a little bit more about the nuances of writing, crafting, and submitting a resume. Now, we've talked about resumes and cover letters, which are an important piece of submitting an application, but there are some other details to keep in mind. One of those is networking. And I mention this for a couple of unique reasons. Now, first of all, networking is great on any scale because it's going to help you find opportunities. But, and this is what's crucial when it comes to resumes and cover letters, it's going to help you gain knowledge. It's going to let you learn more about the field, the industry you're looking to apply to. You're going to understand how they talk about things. You're going to start to see what they identify as challenges or opportunities or problem areas, things that are going to help you highlight the appropriate details on your resume and help you prepare for giving your interview questions. It helps you advance your career. It's going to give you those diverse perspectives. The other thing that it can do is it's really going to give you a chance to get some good career advice. So networking is really crucial for that. And one of the most common areas for networking is LinkedIn. LinkedIn has over 1 billion members. These are from over 200 countries, 120,000 schools, over 644,000 Sun Devils. That's alumni, current employees, current students are on LinkedIn. That is a lot of people with a lot of reach and a lot of spaces for you to gain knowledge, connections, and information. The other reason that I highlight LinkedIn is because over 75% of hiring managers are going to look at your LinkedIn profile if they are looking to offer you an interview or they want to know more about you. This is one of the first places they're going to go to get that information. 75%, that is huge. That means you are far more likely to have somebody try and look for you on LinkedIn to get more information than not. When you are doing this and keeping this in mind, there are 7 key areas of your LinkedIn profile that you really want to have up to date. You want to make sure you've got your photo. Your photo, you want to make sure that it shows you, not you and 3 other people you work with. It should show, generally, it's going to be what we call a portrait or headshot, so shoulders up. You want it to have the clothes that you would wear to work. So if you are in investment banking, that's going to be a 3-piece suit. If you're in health, that might be scrubs. If you're in a lot of other roles, that might be what we consider business casual or professional. You know, it could be a shirt and tie, it could be a polo, but wear what's appropriate for your background. Have a neutral background. What's behind you should be relatively simple, and you don't need a lot of details in it. You want the focus of this photo to be you. You also want good lighting in the photo. If you're using a computer camera, you don't want the light to be behind you for the photo. You don't want to have something spinning above you that's giving you weird shadows on your face. These are things that are true if you're interviewing virtually as well. But for those who are in either Tempe or downtown or can make it to those campuses, there are locations where you can get a free portrait photo. In Tempe, if you go to the Memorial Union, there is an actual like photo booth, a white photo booth you can go into just around the corner from the Desert Financial Credit Union there. It takes about 3 minutes, and all you need is an email address. Again, dress professionally, go in, type in your email address. It takes 3 photos. It's going to let you do some editing, and it'll send them to you afterwards. So you can use those on LinkedIn. You can use those on, your Zoom or Slack if you're on there. You've got a number of places you'll use it, and that's going to be true in your professional setting as well. Most companies have a video conferencing software they use. You can post your photo there. They have an instant messaging system they use, and you can post your photo there to make it easier for people to find you. Things you're going to want to avoid in those photos, the group photos, casual clothes. Again, the bad lighting that I mentioned, the unflattering angles, that shot from down below or whatever. Avoid personal things in the photos, especially because this is a professional presentation of yourself. Second is going to be that headline. You have at most 220 characters, not words, characters. Make sure you determine your audience. Who are you trying to connect to? What information do you want to get out there? It's an advertisement. It's that quick one line about who you are. This is a great space to include keywords from the industry. From a networking perspective, that's great because people are going to find you who are interested in the kind of industry you are going into. But it also highlights on your part an awareness of the industry. It shows that you know what you're talking about. So when those hiring managers come and look and find you there, it shows that you know what you're talking about. For example, you get the little dots between things, which is a great way to turn it into something besides a sentence to really maximize those characters you have. Some folks will use the vertical slashes, things like that. Third is going to be the about me. This is a little bit longer. This is the hook, what draws people in. What skills do you have? What have you accomplished? What is your mission? Essentially, what we're highlighting here, this is you may have heard of the phrase elevator pitch or warm introduction. This is that quick spiel on here's who I am, here's what I've done, here's where I'm going. Focus on those details. Be clear, be confident. It's your powerful introduction to others and why they want to talk to you and know more about you. We've got a couple of details here you are welcome to use. We're not going to go through this right now because it's a little tricky over Zoom, but feel free to take a picture of this, or on the Career Services website, you can also find a worksheet that will walk you through doing all of this as well so that you can start putting together your powerful introduction and then take some time to practice it. Share it with somebody. You can set up an appointment with Career Services and we can walk you through this as well. Another huge section, we've already talked about your resume being a summary. Your resume is a page long. As you go on through your career, that means you might have to start trimming things out. Well, LinkedIn is a great way to include all of those details. Your education section is going to have your school, your major, your degree. Coming back to education, what you're going to highlight on there is your collegiate education. You're going to highlight your bachelor's degree. You don't really need to have your high school graduation on there at this point, unless they specifically ask for it in the application. You're really going to highlight, maybe you've got an associate's degree. You're going to highlight bachelor's degree you're working on. On your education on LinkedIn, you can add to that. Not just your major and degree, and you want to include the school because that's going to be how you connect with others, but you can include clubs that you've been a part of, honors you've earned, projects, presentations you've given, all that sort of stuff can be added here. The same thing is true with your experience. Add your experience, use those bullet points, highlight the skills you've developed there. And this is where you include everything you've done, all of the different jobs you've had, describe the work you've done there and the accomplishments you've achieved in those roles. Talk about it in a little more detail. You can also include volunteer work. Research shows that about 40% of employers consider volunteer work the exact same as professional work. Depending on the industry, that number goes way up. So volunteer work is really crucial. I want to clarify, we're talking about consistent volunteer work, not I help plant trees for a day. We're talking where I volunteered every Friday to go and do this. I volunteered every Saturday to be a part of this. That's what we're talking about here. You can include the accomplishments, the changes you saw over time, what you achieved here as well. And finally, the other big thing is going to be skills. You can include a lot of skills. As you add skills, you can tie them to specific education or presentations or work experience, things like that. But again, research shows that if you have at least 5 skills listed, you are 17 times more likely to get profile views. So this is an important thing to include. Hiring managers are going to come find you whether you have this or not. But if you're using this to expand while using it for those hiring managers as well, let's try that one again. Skills are an important thing to include because they lead to increased views as well. The other important thing, I talked about using it, adding your name on there, adding your school on there, because there's 644,000 Sun Devils in the program on LinkedIn. You can use it to research organizations. As you start searching for those internships and you're applying to them, search for the organizations you're applying with on here. When you find an organization on LinkedIn, they're going to have this lovely little tab that says people. From there, you can go and look at people you may know. You'll see that this particular example, Read Better, Be Better, has 4 people working there who have studied at Arizona State University. That is a great way to make connections. You can reach out and connect with the people. You can send them messages. If you're not connected to them and send them a message, you have a limit of, I believe it's 200 characters for that message. That's a very short message. Hi, we both went to ASU. I'd love to learn more about your organization. Hi, we both went to ASU. You do this, and I'd love to learn more about it. What you should not do if you're going to go that route is reach out to people and say, Hi, I'm applying to this internship. Hi, I'm trying to get a job here. You want to focus on, again, keep that conversation on them and what you want to learn from them, not saying, Hey, I need a job. Hey, can you review my resume? Hey, can you give me a recommendation? Focus on, I'd love to learn more about the opportunities here. I'd love to learn more about the organization. Focus on what you can gain so that when you go into an interview, you've already got knowledge. You've done your research. You're prepared for it. So that way, when you're submitting a resume for the opportunity, you know the terms that the company uses. You know how the company talks about things. And you can do that on your cover letter and in your resume. These are important things to do as you're building your professional brand. When you do this on LinkedIn, make sure you're following companies, follow hashtags, follow influencers. Companies that you want to work with, such as ones you're applying to for these internships, are really important. You're going to see them start to post things. Their posts are going to come up on your threads and feed, and that's going to help you understand how they talk about things. It's going to help you understand how they refer to things, what they address as problems, so that you can craft your resume, craft your cover letter to address those specific concerns and topics. Now, some final touches when we're talking about LinkedIn. First of all, a header photo is a lovely thing. You can use one that is specific to the industry you're going into. Maybe you've got a tech one or a science focused one or a writing focused one or whatever it might be. You can have one that fits for you. You can also look at giving and receiving endorsements and recommendations. Giving those will lead to other people wanting to give them to you, which is a great way to enhance your profile, your reach on LinkedIn, and then joining and participating in groups that you have knowledge and expertise in as well is going to help your name pop up more. As you start connecting with people, make sure you're liking their posts. Make sure you're commenting on their posts. That's a good way for your name to stand out to them. You build that name recognition without it being, oh yeah, they're the person who asked me 3 times on LinkedIn via messaging for a job. No, you're the person who, oh yeah, they regularly comment on my post with some good information. Or, oh yeah, they regularly like my post because they're connected to it. They're interested in this kind of work. That's how you want to stand out there. Now, as you do all of this, if you find yourself still looking for, still needing some additional support, there are resources out there. There are opportunities where you can find it. I'm always going to recommend starting with Handshake. If you have not yet, go to Handshake and make an appointment or set up your account. First time you log in, you've got to go through a few details to really set that up. Once you're there, though, you'll see on the left there is a Career Center feature. Once you're in there, there's going to be an appointments option, then a new appointments option, and then you'll choose the ASU Career Services. From there, you're going to get a list of different appointment types. Choose the one that fits best with what you're looking for. Looking for resume help? Choose that option. Looking to refine your LinkedIn page? Choose that option. Looking for help with your job search or internship search? Choose that option. Choose the one that fits best for what you're looking for, see who is currently available when they have those appointments coming up, and join in on those. That said, we do also offer drop-in, both virtual drop-in appointments and in-person drop-in appointments on each campus. So you're welcome to join us as well. The Career Services website does in fact talk about when those drop-in appointments are, and you can join us for all that sort of stuff. We have online resources to help with all of this. As you move into getting interview opportunities for these internships, we have resources on the Career Services website that will help you practice your interviews. Just like you can use VMock to submit your resume and get instant feedback, we have a platform called Big Interview where you can practice traditional interview questions and it's going to give you instant feedback. How many times do you look away from the camera? How many verbal fillers? Like, well, how many of those sort of things do you include in your as you answer questions? How can you enhance your responses to questions using, you've heard of the STAR method or things like that? How do you focus on, just like you use accomplishment statements to talk about what you've achieved, how do you demonstrate that in an interview? We have online resources that can help, and you can set up appointments where we can help you with that as well. Career Services is here to support with all of that, whether you're just drafting that resume, whether you're updating it, whether you're actively applying or interviewing for positions. So, thank you all so much for joining us for this conversation today. I did want to leave some space for both Acacia to chat about Blackstone and for any questions you all may have based on what I shared. I'd love for you to take some time to complete the survey, but more importantly, if you still have questions or things you wanted to verify or clarify, please feel free to drop those in the chat now, and I will make sure to go through them and address them. So if there's any questions folks have, feel free to pop those in the chat, okay?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. This was so informative. I'm very happy that you defined CV because I was always curious what that stood for. But like Chris said, you can put your questions in the chat. I'm just talking right now, so it's not awkwardly quiet while you're waiting or typing.
That's fair.
Uh, but I do really recommend all of these services that Chris has provided. I do suggest to students to take advantage of this. And not only do I suggest it, I have also put my own resume in VMock. So I am not just walking the talk, I'm talking it as well too.
Absolutely. And again, VMock is a great resource. It's going to give you that instant feedback. I recommend VMock. Use VMock for that first round or three of your resume review. Upload it, you know, review it, refine it, upload it again, review it one more time. After you've got a score you feel pretty comfortable with, whatever that may be, then come in for the live appointment. And we can go through those little details. Hey, you really do this well, but you don't address this that they're looking for in the application. What a lot of folks will do, what I myself do, is I keep what I call a master resume. This is a resume that at the moment is way too long because it includes everything I've ever done, every single experience. My current role has 15 bullet points under it. If I were to apply for something, I would actually like take that, create a new version that I've trimmed it down to that 1 to 2 pages, whatever is appropriate for the role I'm applying for, 1 page for the current stuff you all are looking at. And that's what I would submit. So keeping that master resume is a great way to make sure you track everything, but what you're submitting is specific to the role you're applying for.
Awesome. So I am going to, while you still think about your questions, I'm going to go ahead and share some resources to all of you that Blackstone has available. All right, so all of you, I hope, are on our startup tree. This is where you'll get a lot of information on the Blackstone Launchpad program. But just for some context, if you're new and you really don't know a lot about Blackstone, I want to give you more info on what Blackstone is. So the ASU Blackstone Launchpad is a program that helps both ASU students and Maricopa Community College students. Blackstone is a trillion-dollar asset company, and what that means for you as students is you're able to take advantage of the opportunities that Blackstone has through these companies that they own. So Blackstone has internships and they funnel students to these positions through these programs and campuses. There's a bunch of Blackstone Launchpad campuses across the US, and they have paid internship positions, and these are on Handshake. So the slide that Chris had for you all with the handshake for you to sign up, you will need to actually do that if you want to get a internship with Blackstone. So I'll just put the link in here. But make sure that you are constantly checking that up because summer 2025 internships are being available now and they're refreshing constantly. So they are open for you to start applying to, and the sooner you start getting your resume together, the sooner you can start applying for these opportunities. Something that we have coming up is Global Innovation Night. So a part of my job and my programming is to not just help students find internships, but we also help with entrepreneurship. These are really great skill sets for you to have when you are applying to these internships. Entrepreneurial skill mindsets help you to be a leader, help you to have critical thinking, and help you to just really get those soft skills that you need to show on your resume that you know what you're talking about. So if entrepreneurship is something that interests you, we have a global innovation night that's going to be on the 21st where you can practice pitching. There's going to be a panel there. There will also be food, and this will be at the pub at Thunderbird. So if any of you are interested in Venture Showcase, is highly recommended for you. Another thing that we have kind of piggybacking on pitching is Venture Devils. This is something that's open to ASU and Maricopa Community College students. So if you're serious about a venture and you really want to see if it would work, if you need a mentor, you can get partnered with someone that will help you create a pitch deck, and also you can go to demo day and actually pitch your idea. Demo day is where a lot of ventures get seed funding. So there's a lot of money to be had at Venture Devils. So I suggest if that is something that you're interested in, we do have demo day this Saturday. So obviously you can't apply for that one, that round. The next round will open up for spring, but it's open all throughout the year, so you can continually apply for applications for Venture Devils. But if you want to see how other students and your peers kind of get their ventures together to pitch, this is a great opportunity for you to come and just watch. And it's this Saturday. We have Student Made, which is an online shop like an Etsy, if you will. So if you have anything that you want to sell on campus with ASU, this is a great platform for you to do so. You don't have to pay any of the fees or go through application processes to sell your items on actual campus. They take care of all of that for you. So Student Made is something that I highly suggest to those independent students that have really cool items that they want to sell. And we have some training development resources that are very helpful for all of you with different types of skill sets. So if entrepreneurship isn't your thing and you really want to focus on finding an internship or a career, these TDR modules will really help you in honing down that leadership, critical thinking, and a lot of other skills that are important for you to be the best candidate when you're applying for internships. Lastly, I always tell students to sign up for emails, not just mine, but it is important for you to sign up for emails and to read your emails because there's a lot of opportunities on campus. And I just highly suggest that you do this because once you leave ASU and you graduate, all these opportunities become so much smaller. So definitely read your emails. see the opportunities that there are available for networking, whether it's pitching or anything like that. There's also a lot of money to be had in these emails. There's a lot of programming that involves cash prizes. So definitely read your emails and sign up for newsletters. And that is, I think, all I have. Anybody else has any questions? Again, I highly suggest that you please reach out to career services for more feedback and more guidance because they are really the professionals in this interview and cover letter and resume avenue, and they have so much resources for you to get everything squared away and good to go for applying for these internships for summer 2025. But if there's no other questions or feedback, please send it over via email or make an appointment. But thank you so much for being here and participating. And I hope that this was valuable for you and that you guys are starting to apply for internships. I really hope that you take advantage of this workshop. So thank you so much.